Alright, Chapter 5, Section 1. This unit here is going to focus on functions that are linear. Last unit, what we learned is that linear functions have a common difference between each set of values. That is the one where, on our first check, everything fit. One of the first things we have to do is extend our understanding of what we call a common difference into a new set of words. If you remember, what we did was the common difference. We call it the rate of change, but the two words you're going to use instead of common difference in your linear functions is the rate of change and slope. So keep these two words down. Again, you might want to write down that slope and rate of change are the same thing as the common difference. That way you understand what we're talking about. These both represent what we have called our common difference between values. It's also more specific, and we must consider whether the value is positive or negative. Before, our common difference really could have gone either way, and we really didn't care whenever it was beyond the first check. But now you have to make sure you understand whether it's positive or negative, and you can lose a whole piece of credit for just simply putting the wrong sign. So we still must do some of the same things to get the slope or rate of change. So look at the following tables. Last unit, what we would do is we would say, okay, 3, 4 to 5 is good. This here is a change of going down to, so our rate of change, our common difference was -2. Well, our slope in this case is -2 also. And this one here, I don't know if you remember, a lot of you didn't do so well on this, so I guess it's good that we're going through this. But this, what I told you to do is to say, well, yes, this is increasing by 12, but this is increasing by 2. And so what we had to do is say, if that's increasing by 12 and that's increasing by 2, then we do 12 divided by 2, which is a rate of change of 6. Same thing here, that this is increasing by, I believe, 18, and this is increasing by 3, and so you do 18 divided by 3, which is again a rate of change of 6. So this is kind of where we were right before we wrapped up everything and where the problems were going. But now the difference is that there is actually an equation that is used to find the slope, or the points on the tables. So write this formula down for your own use with the little extra notes that I give you. The slope is equal to, or the rate of change is equal to, these are called subscripts. And what subscripts tend to mean, whenever you have a subscript, is y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. This is not to a power, but usually you will say either y2 or y sub 2, y1 or y sub 1, but for the sake of saying it faster, most people just say y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. But again, what these subscripts tend to mean is they indicate the list value of the y variable. So this would be the second y variable, the first y variable, the second x variable, the first x variable. If you ever see something like a sub-0, which you won't see in this, but I just figure if we're on it, we might as well talk about it. Anytime you see sub-0, it just means initial y. So if you were doing a problem where a population started at some part and your formula asks for something sub-0, you're probably going to put the starting amount in for that sub-0. But again, that has nothing to do with this. I just want to make sure you've got it. But looking at this, what we would do, looking back at one of our first things, and you'll see that what we did is actually pretty true. y2 again means, look at the second y. Well, here's our list of y's. Here's our second y right here, which means we would put 5 minus y1, which in this case is the first y, which is 7, over x2, which here is our x, here's our second x, 4 minus x1, which is 3. And notice we still get -2 up top, which is what we got here. We still get a 1 here, which is what we did. We recognize that this went up 1, which still gives us -2. It even still works for here. Again, y2 being 16 minus y1 being 4 over x2, which is 8, minus 6, which is our x1, which is 6. You still get a 12 up top. You still get a 2. We are still dividing the 2 like I said we would anyway. So again, you kind of already have an idea on how to do this. Just memorize this formula, or the work that it takes to do it. So looking back at our work from earlier, we can see that we have been doing this all along. What I found is that the easiest way to find the slope, or as we say, rate of change, is to put the values into a table no matter what. Now I know, again, some of us like to make sure we get the problem done as fast as possible, which is fine. But for those who are trying to make sure you get it right, start practicing now the right way, And then what happens is when you practice it enough, you don't need to use the table anymore, but you use the table to kind of get your pattern down and your understanding down. But look at the following problems, and here's what I would do. Again, find the slope of the line passing through 411 and 819. It really does not matter what order you put the table in, but what I always do is I like to put xy followed by two values. First point goes in, 411. Second point goes in, 819. From there, what I do is I simply do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which means 19 minus 11 over 8 minus 4. 19 minus 11 turns into 8. 8 minus 4 turns into 4. 8 divided by 4 gives me an answer of 2. And that is your rate of change or your slope. Okay? Overall, what you'll find out is that the pattern stays the same, and that's why I like to go back to the table. It will always be this minus that over this minus that every single time. This minus that over this minus that, which is why the table works better to help me memorize it, because after I memorize the direction of, or the order of what I'm subtracting, I really don't have to memorize that formula anymore, because my muscle memory of 19 minus 11, 8 minus 4, or this minus that over this minus that takes over for itself. Second equation, just to make sure you've got the trick problems taken care of. The hard situations is whenever you have a negative. So 3, negative 2, negative 4, 19. And typically the people who miss these questions, it's because of pride. It's because of lack of making a good decision, because some of us know we're not good with negatives. Some of us know we make small mistakes all the times with negatives. And again, you know who you are. If you are that person, then you probably need to take the advice that I give on this, which is to just use the calculator. Make sure you write it down the right way, and then just use the calculator for the sake of the test or the quiz, because missing something that you know you always miss just because you don't want to take the extra step is kind of foolish, but whatever that is. So either way, put your first point in, 3, negative 2, second point in, negative 4, 19. Again, our formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, which means that we end up with y2 again, which is that same box that we see, 19. Minus has to be there, but notice that this is a negative 2. And again, this is why I say you have to be careful. Here, this is a negative 4 minus 3. Now this gives us two situations that both, some people are good with one more than the other, but just make sure, again, if there's any question in your head, just type it into your calculator. For example, here you would do 19 minus negative 2, exactly the way you see it. It would give you a number. Here you would do negative 4 minus 3, which is exactly the way you see it. It gives you a number. But otherwise, doing it the real way, the way that some of you are going to, a lot of you are going to be able to do. Remember, whenever you see a double negative, they both turn into a positive, which is why you end up with a positive 21. Also remember, this is a negative 4 and a negative 3, which works together to make negative 7. And then when you divide 21 by negative 7, you end up with negative 3. Okay? We're also going to be asked to find the slope of a line. The phrase that you're going to use is rise over run. Please, again, make sure you write that down for yourself. And notice you notice that this is a second type of thing. What we are asked to do is find the slope of 2 points, which is this part where we have 2 points. But there's also something where they will give us a line. And when you do the line, you are going to use rise over run. Now let's think for a second. When you talk about the x and y axis, that's the x, that's the y. Notice that y was on top of the formula. And notice that y is the one that rises or drops. So that is where you're getting your rise from. Notice that x is the one that runs left and right. And so rise over run is simply a word form or a visual form for you to remember that it goes y on top, x on the bottom, or the y direction on top, the x direction on the bottom. Another thing you want to make sure you always do is always run right. So a note you want to write for yourself when it comes to this, sorry I can't spell. Up and down is one thing, but always run to the right. Always start from the leftmost point, so you always go that way. Otherwise, some of your slopes are going to get flipped around. But again, let's see. We're also going to be asked to find a slope of a line. The phrase you're going to use is rise over run. Always begin again with the leftmost point and count the moves necessary, kind of like you're playing a Monopoly or something else, with your hops. If the first move is up, then the slope is positive. If the first move is down, then the slope is negative. Look at a couple examples. Again, there's really no way to take notes on this. You just kind of have to experience it, which is why the computer work is so important for you. Not just experience it, but make sure you know it. When it asks what's the slope of this line, you notice that you have two good points, and a good point is determined by the fact that you notice this point crosses through a nice part here. Notice that this doesn't cross at a nice spot, doesn't cross at a nice spot, no, and another one. So this picture here is actually giving us 2 points that are nice. If it didn't, you'd have to actually find them on your own, but we'll probably work on that later. But again, always start at the left point. You always want to have a point to the right of where you are. And so again, rise, you say, how many steps does it take for me to get level with the second point? And notice that we went up 2. And then your run is sideways, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means that my slope of this is 2/5. It is positive because I went up 2 and then over 5. Positive 2/5 would be my slope. On this one, again, it gives us 2 points, but if you notice that the 2 points are nice locations, so whenever you start to look, if you notice, I think there's actually one right here that we could use if we wanted to. We'll talk about that in a second. But I'm going to use the 2 that the book gave me, and if I was going to go from here to here, remember we always want to start from the leftmost spot, and our rise to get to here would be a down 2, and down 2 means that is a negative 2, and our run again always running right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, negative 2 over 6, which means that would reduce to be negative 1/3. You have to make sure your slopes are reduced. Now let's look back at the fact that there was a second point. Notice real fast, if you were to go from here to here, that you still would have gone down 1, which is a negative 1, and over 1, 2, 3, which is your 1/3. So it does not matter which 2 points you use, as long as you find 2 solid points, 2 points that cross at nice locations, and you can find a slope. Again, the other thing is, if you go down first, you must make sure you have a negative on your slope. The second thing is, make sure you reduce your fraction. For those of you who aren't good at reducing fractions, simply take that fraction, it doesn't matter about the sign, and type it into your calculator if you are bad at it. So 2 over 6 is what we got first, and then you simply hit math, enter, enter, which of course reduces that fraction to 1/3 for you. So if you have issues and you're taking a test or a quiz and you notice you've had issues reducing fractions all unit or all week or whatever it might be, just make sure that you reduce that using your calculator so you don't miss it when it counts. The last piece of information revolves around zero slopes and undefined slopes. If we type 0 over 15 into our calculator, 0 divided by 15, we get the answer of 0, which means that the answer is actually 0. If we type 15 divided by 0 into our calculator breaks, so to speak. It doesn't break, but what it's saying is, I have no idea. This is a computer which you know understands every single answer that you can possibly type, and the computer is telling us, I have no idea what that answer is because I have not ever seen it in my life. But the error message tells us that it is undefined. That means that there is no definition for something divided by 0. And so in terms of lines, you have to make sure you understand which one's which. If you get 0 in the calculator, or if 0 is your answer, if 0 divided by something is your answer of 0, then it's 0. But if you are confused and you type it in and you get an error message, that means that it is undefined. Again, you might want to write down 0 means 0, error means undefined. Because that is really what you need to make sure you're aware of. In terms of lines, we can consider our understanding of positive and negative slopes. So one way to remember which one's which is to remember that a positive line goes this way. Notice that if I write my name on it, that it goes up. One easy way to tell whether slope is positive or negative is to write your name on it, and notice that if I wrote my name on it, it would go up. This is positive. Another line would go this way. Of course, that line would be negative. Because if I wrote my name on that line, notice it goes down. So the way to identify 0 is a line that goes straight across. So again, positive this way, negative that way. The number between any positive and any negative is 0, which means that that is how you know that it is a 0 slope. Alright. If it's not going flat across, then you know it's undefined because it goes this way. Another way to think about it is the fact that whenever I write a T, the long line goes this way, the short line goes that way. Well, I would think about it as the words undefined and 0. This is the long word. See how long it takes to write it? This is the short word. So in terms of the letter T, the long line is here, the short line is here, which means the long word is here, that's undefined. The short word is here, that's 0. I don't know how you're going to memorize it. I just know it's up to you to make sure you memorize it by the time you get down to the test. So let's look at some examples from the book. Again, you don't have to write all these, just make sure you understand what is going on. One of the things it's going to ask you to do is determine if the rate of change is constant. And if it is, find the rate of change and what it represents. Looking at this box, you have to start using your common sense on questions. That way it makes it easier for you. One thing you understand is that whenever your first box is increasing by 1, you don't have to do the actual formula because you can use your common sense. You already know common difference is the same as slope, and we know how to find common difference of this from last unit. So 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4 means we can look at this and say our rate of change here is 6, rate of change here is 3, rate of change here is 6. Is the slope constant? No, it's not, because of that number right there. So once you see that, that's pretty much telling you that this is not even really part of what we're going to be dealing with because it's not constant. So again, it says determine whether the rate of change is constant. That means determine the rate of change between all three. Pretty much it's the same question as is it linear? If you remember the question from last unit, is it linear? This is not linear, which means that the rate of change is not constant. Remember, constant means it does not change. We had a 6, a 3, and a 6. Looking at this one, it's a little different. And what you notice is it goes 0 to 2, 2 to 5, 5 to 12. We still will do our part over here. This is subtracting 1,000, but this is going up 2, which means we do negative 1,000 divided by 2, which means that our overall change is negative 5,000. Got it? Again, 29,000 minus 30,000 is negative 1,000, or it went down 1,000. This went up 2. You can divide it that way. Here, I don't know what 27,500 minus 29,000 is, so I am going to use this to save myself, and I get negative 1,500. But this is going up 3. Negative 15. Sorry, that's not 5,000, it's 500. But negative 1,500 divided by 3 is negative 15 divided by 3, which is again negative 500. Here, 24,000 minus 27,500 gives me negative 3,500. This here went up 7, so that went down 3,500, up 7. This divided by this, notice 35 divided by 7 gives us negative 500. So yes, this is constant, and the rate of change is negative 500. Okay? So again, checking out that skill, work on that skill when you get the chance to, and make sure you're ready to answer those questions correctly. I don't think it's hard. I just think it's a matter of either you are listening to my videos like you're supposed to, or you are not. 11. Find the slope of the line. Again, you'll see some questions like this. I don't know if they'll give you a point, but if they don't, just make sure you find them. But if they do give us a point, again, make sure if you have 2 points, you start from the one on the left. Your rise in this problem is 1, 2, 3, 4 down, so negative 4. 1, 2 over 2, which means that your slope is negative 2, because negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. If you were asked to find the slope of this one, again, starting from the leftmost point to get to here, I have to go up 1, which means that 1 is my first number, over 3, which means 3 is my second number. I don't think that reduces. It means that the rate of change or the slope of that line is 1/3. If I was looking at this one, again, 2 points here, leftmost point, rise is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a positive. Over 1. Anything divided by 1 is itself. It means that the rate of change of that line is 4. Notice how we take 4 over 1 and turn it into 4. 14. Rate of change here. In order to get to the right point, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over, which means that your rate of change is 5/6. That does not reduce. Here, big one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 over. Again, let's say you don't like doing that, so what I would do if I were trying to be safe is just type in 6 divided by 8, then math, enter to see that I need to reduce that to be 3/4. Of course, we knew it was 3/4, but again, keeping in mind that not every number you get is going to look that nice. Last one before we leave it, going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 2. The fact that I went down 5 means put a -5. Always a positive number. -5/2 would be the rate of change for that one. Okay. Second thing the other thing you're going to be asked to do again is to find the rate of change of 2 points. The first one is 1, 3, and 5, 5 up here. And again, what we will do, the best way to do it is to put the points in to a table. 1, 3, 5, 5. And again, I'm not going to write the formula because I, at this point, understand the pattern is this minus this over this minus that. So it's 5 minus 3 over 5 minus 1, which gives me an answer of 2 up here, 4 down here. If you leave it as 2/4, you're going to miss part of your credit. Just remember to reduce that to be 1/2. That is the rate of change. Number 21 gives us the points -6, 1, and 4, 8. Same thing. If they give us 2 points, make your table. -6, 1, 4, 8. Here, again, this minus that. Just muscle memory, 8 minus 1 over 4 minus, don't forget that's minus -6. Because it is double negative, that changes. This turns into a 7. 4 plus 6 is 10. The rate of change on that is 7/10. Now, the shortcut you can take, and it's not really a shortcut, but it's just a matter of I already know where x is and where y is. I don't need to write x and y. I can just put a big cross in there and then put the third point, which is 2, -3 up top, and 5, -4 on the bottom. That way I have my numbers, and again my muscle memory kicks in. It's always the second minus the first over the second minus the first. So it's -4 minus -3 over 5 minus 2. Double negatives here means the negatives win by 1. 5 minus 2 being 3 means my slope is -1/3. This is a very important skill. Every year that I teach, students always get here, they kind of take it seriously, and then all of a sudden you have to use it and they get the wrong slope and it messes everything up. You cannot miss your rate of change questions, which is why you have to make sure you're ready for this. Then real fast, whenever you see this line, think positive, -0. This would be a 0 slope. If it's not a 0 slope, this is the undefined slope. Again, this is also a 0 slope because if I wrote my name on this line, it would go nowhere. I actually can't write my name on this line because I don't know where the top side is, which is why it's undefined. Alright? Because we are much more accustomed to working through computers now, it's a big change you have to make sure you listen to. We can increase the requirements for your credit. I think a lot of us are getting comfortable with just kind of doing the computer work and then messing up on quizzes, or doing the computer work and then messing around in class. So I have to kind of keep us out of trouble here. You are still allowed to do the A assignments the same as before, which means if you're going through and you're not really doing it on paper, that's fine because you're just kind of practicing the skill. But if you want any credit on a B assignment, you will hand it in to me now. It has to be done on paper. You, again, on A assignments may work together. You may ask for assistance on A's, but please do not ask for any assistance on a B assignment anymore. Doing so will have me the first time I'll just kind of warn you. The second time after that, I'm going to say, hey, I got to take 10% away because you asked for assistance on a B assignment. From here on out, again, you are no longer allowed to ask for assistance on B, and you should be working alone. Again, that's one of those things where if I notice that you're working on a B assignment and you are talking to someone, then you can possibly lose 10%, 20%. If it becomes a big issue, I just put a 0 in the book and leave it as a 0. So yes, it's the honor system, but be honorable. It's one of the things that makes you a successful person. Just make sure if you know you're not supposed to be cheating on B or working together on B, that you don't. If you want to do a B quiz at home, fine, do it at home, but just make sure you do it alone. Don't make me question whether or not you are doing the work, because what I am starting to see is people that have this in the grade book throughout the week, and then they get this on the quiz, and that is going to make me question or find another way to adjust to what you're doing. Or if I see that, then I'm going to say, hey, I need all of your A assignments. If you are the person that always gets 100% here and then 60s here, then I'm going to make a special rule for you that says all of your A assignments must be on paper also, and it's going to become a big issue there. So make sure you are doing the B assignments alone. I don't mind if you practice together, that's what A is, but when it gets to the assessment, make sure you do the actual B quiz alone, so we don't get this situation happening and I don't have to make another adjustment just for you. But other than that, go ahead and log into your MathXL and knock it out. Again, take your time on the A work. Make sure you're asking for questions or asking questions. Make sure you're getting assistance. I hope that some of you are starting to figure out that missing the same problem 17 days in a row without asking for any assistance is definitely foolish. If you've missed it once or twice, 3 times, just get up, bring me the computer, or ask someone around you and say, hey, what's going on with this, and get an explanation, because you're wasting your time, and that's why you're falling behind on MathXL. So good luck.